Hello everyone, welcome to case 5. Case 5, we are in square root and cube root of both sides. Square root and cube root of both sides. That's case 5. So let's see what we are looking at. Now solve for the unknown. X squared equals to 49. X squared equals to 49. Now, what are we to do here? Now, remember the aim of solving simple equation that we are to solve for the unknown. What we want to see x is equal to y is equals to. We don't need to see x squared equal to or x cube equal to. So when we have a case where we are having x squared, what are we to do? We are to take out the square. We are to take out the square. And the only way we can take out the square, remember we talked about this, that one can cancel a square is a square root. Square root is the opposite of square. So the only way we can take out the square in this equation is if we use what? If we bring in a square root. If we bring in square root. And we are not only to square one side, we have to make it balanced. We have to square the both sides. The same thing we did when we were dividing both sides. So what do we have here? So this will give us square both sides. Square both sides. That will be x. Sorry, square root. Square root. Sorry about that. This will be square root both sides. So this will be x squared equal to 49. And what do? We square root and then we square root. This is what we mean by square rooting both sides. So the square root here will cancel the square, and that will give us x equal to the square root of 49 is equal to 7. So that is what we do here. Okay, let's proceed to number 2. Solution: 2x squared equal to 32. 2x squared equals to 32. Now, there's an understanding that we need to get from this question. Now, what's the understanding? The understanding is that we need to understand that the square here is touching only x. Let's look at this. 2x squared and 2x all brackets, then square. In this case, this is like saying 2 times x squared. The square is only touching the x. The square is only touching the x. And then in this case, the square is touching both 2 and x. This is the one we have 2x times 2x. 2x times 2x. So we are in this first one where the square is touching only the x. So what do we do in this case? Now, we don't square root at this point. Before we remove the square, remember the aim of using the square root is to remove the square. The aim of bringing in square root is to remove the square. But we don't remove the square first. The first thing we are supposed to do is to remove these two is to remove the 2 before we talk about removing the square. And how do we remove the 2? Remove the 2 by dividing both sides by what? 2. That's the coefficient of x squared. 2 is the coefficient of what? X squared. See what? Because this is multiplication. This is multiplication. 2 times x squared. So that will give us 2x squared equal to 32. And then we divide by 2. And then we divide by 2. So 2 cancels. And then we are left with x squared equal to, this will give us 16. So this is the point where we can now do what? We can now square root both sides. So that will give us x squared equals to 16. And then we take the square root of both sides. And that will give us square root cancelling the square. Our x equal to square root of 16 will give us 4. Okay? So we move to this number 3 solution. Let's see what we have here. This is 2x squared all over 3 equal to This is 24 all over 1. Of course, you guessed it right. What we should do is we should be cross multiplying first. Cross multiplying first. What we have 2x squared times 1. That will give us 2x squared equal to 24 times 3. That will give us 72. Now, just like we discussed in the last question, that the square here is touching only x. It's touching only x. So we need to remove these 2. Since the square is not touching the 2, we need to remove the 2. And how do we remove the 2? Remove the 2 by dividing both sides by 2. And when we do that, what are we left with? We are left with x squared equal to, this will give us 36. That's where we can now square root both sides. So we take the square root of both sides. And when we do that, what do we have? The square root cancels the square, and our x is equal to 6. Okay, and then we move to number 4. What do we have in number 4? This will be x, x squared plus 7 equal to 88. X squared plus 7 is equal to 88. Now, if you look at this question, the square is touching only x. The square is touching only x. We are just having plus 7 here. So what are we to do first? We need to remove this plus 7. We need to remove the plus 7. How do we remove the plus 7? We need to collect like terms. So take it to where the number is, and that will give us x squared equals to what? Equals to 88 plus 7 crossing down will give us minus 7. And what would that be? So we have our x squared equal to 81. And what do we do at that point? This is where we now square root both sides. So square root here and then square root here. And then the square root cancels the square. So our x is equal to 9. Okay, so we move to number 5. What do we have in number 5? This is x plus 2 all squared equal to 121. X plus 2 all squared equals to 121. Now, what do we do here? Look at this. Everything inside here is enclosed by this square. Everything inside the bracket is enclosed by the square. So we cannot remove x, and we cannot remove 2. We cannot remove x. So the only thing we can do is to remove the square. The only thing we can do is to remove the square. Please look at this. X squared plus 2 and having x plus 2 all squared. They are different things. In this one, you need to remove this plus 2. But in this one, you cannot take out the plus 2 because it is inside the bracket. It is inside the bracket, and the square is also touching it. It is inside the bracket. So the only thing you can do here first is to remove this square, is to remove the square. And how do you remove the square? Remove the square by square rooting both sides. So we square root both sides, and that will give us x plus 2 all square equal to 121. So we'll take the square root of both sides. And what would that give us? The square root will cancel the square, and we'll be left with x plus 2. X plus 2 equal to what? 11. X plus 2 equal to 11. And then what do? We can collect like terms from there. X will be equal to 11 minus 2, and our x is equal to what? 9. So that will be our answer. Okay, and then we have the final question. This one has to do with cube. We've been doing squares all through, so let's see the one that has to do with cube. X cube equal to what? 8. The only way we can take out the cube is if we bring in our cube root. So this one will be cube root both sides, cube root both sides, and that will give us x raised to power 3 equal to 8. So let's cube root both sides. Remember the symbol for cube root, that 3 will come in here, and then we'll cube root both sides. So this will give us the cube root, will cancel the cube, and that will give us x equal to cube root of 8 is equal to what? Is equal to 2. So that brings us to the end of our examples on square root and cube root of both sides. Please carefully go through the examples. Now, you have activity questions here. What you do for the activity questions, keep them side by side with the examples that we've done. Keep them side by side with the examples that we've done and carefully go through them. Carefully go through them. Everything in the activity questions has been touched in the examples. So carefully go through them one after the other. These are essential things that are needed at the secondary school level mathematics. Thank you very much. I hope you really enjoyed this video. So we've come to the end of case 5, and then we're moving to case 6 in our next class. Do well to like, to subscribe, and also share to others. See you in case 6.